Hey everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm Mike B, and today we're going to be doing a Would You Rather segment between the H&K G3, represented here by this beautiful PTR 91 rifle with the Portuguese furniture and the nice PTR manufactured receiver. Good stuff. The H&K G3, sorry, a little bit of a fanboy, a little chub going on there, and the FAL. So both these rifles are chambered in the 7.62 by 51 millimeter NATO cartridge, which was supposed to be an intermediate cartridge at the time it was introduced. It's a little bit shorter and whatever than the 30-06, which was actually kind of the first NATO standard that European countries started using. It technically wasn't, but that's what Belgium and Luxembourg and France and Germany were kind of experimenting with the 30-06 rifles, primarily because it was a US cartridge. And then they came out with the 7.6251 NATO cartridge, and this kind of series of rifles called battle rifles came out. Now, these are both from the mid to late 1950s, and the Germans initially adopted the G1, or it's an FNFAL, in the late 50s from Belgium, and then their Bundesgrenzschütze received some Setmies, some Spanish Setmies, which is what this is based off of. And they decided that they liked these better, so that they started making their own version. And they improved it a little bit, did some modifications, and there's a few things that are different about an H&K G3 than a Setme, but essentially same rifle, same platform. Now, this G3 is a roller lock blowback system. So that means that, kind of like a CZ52, if you've ever seen that, basically there's a bolt in here, right, that when you put it forward into battery, there's roller locks that come out into little areas in the receiver that hold it tight, and they also hold it in place so that the pressure from the round can build up a little bit before it actually pushes the bolt back, and by the time it has enough pressure to kind of get the rollers to come back, it's such a violent force that it forces the bolt back and back into battery really quickly, all the while the bullet's coming out of the barrel. So that's basically how this weapon works. And then the FNFAL is a piston blowback system. So the G3, you've got a lot of, come on man, stay up there. The G3, you've actually got a lot of carbon that'll end up in the bolt carrier area, and it'll start gunking up and stuff. Kind of like an AR-15, it's just, but it's a lot less because there's not all the carbon from each round. But anyway, so this is a piston-driven system where it's got a little hole in the barrel, so you do lose a negligible amount of velocity, and it comes up and it blows this piston back, much like an AK-47, and cycles an operating rod, which then again pushes the bolt back and works the action and stuff. So a lot of your carbon's actually going to be up here in a very large area, and it's not going to gunk up as easily and as quickly as, say, like a G3 or an AR-15. So I'm just going to kind of go through a few things why I like a certain one over the other one, not by a huge margin, but they're really cool. First of all, I want to start off by saying these are both really nice rifles. They're still being used around the world today in a large capacity. The round is amazing. Love 7.6251. Both of them have nice selectors, kind of the thumb selectors here, and the kind of like the AR-15, which I actually love about the AR-15 is the selector switch. So these are pretty interesting. I personally think the G3 is easier to operate than the standard one, but you can get different selector levers for the FNFAL. Not a big deal. Now, another thing that I like too about the G3 is the fact that it's got both the paddle magazine release and the push button. So depends on your personal preference. I personally like the paddle better. That system is just kind of easier for me to use. And this is a little bit farther than it is on an AR, but it's still very effective. And if you like that better, you've got that option on here. Charging handles. On the H&K G3, charging handles located up front, just like most of the H&K platforms, and the MP40, I think that's what it was kind of based off of. But yeah, you pull it back and up and all that stuff. It's actually kind of hard to use for me. It's got a really long length up there, and you got to kind of jerk the thing back. I actually love the placement of the FNFAL charging handle because it's close enough, it's right above the magazine, where you can keep your firing hand on the weapon. You can do that with the G3 as well, but I'm way out here trying to reach up there, or you have to pull the weapon down like this to actually charge it. This one, you can actually just change mags and rack it and stay on target pretty much the whole time. So I actually prefer that kind of charging handle. This handle on here is made for individual movement techniques, IMTs, so like when you're bounding and stuff. It's not actually made to just carry it, although you see people doing that. The H&K G3 is missing this or doesn't have that. It's actually not a deal breaker. It's not that big of a deal. It's just kind of the iconic look of the FAL. As far as like for what I'm using it for, target shooting and kind of fun shooting, I'm probably never going to use this. All right, the sights. So I actually prefer the FAL sights better because they're closer to US sights. They've got the 3-prong kind of front sight on there, you can see, and then the aperture in the rear. Now the H&K G3, it's got a good sight on it, right? So the 100-yard battle sight's open. It's a V-notch, and then this actually rotates, this little drum. And then you got a 200, and it's an aperture sight, but it's a front sight post like that that's surrounded in a globe. And it's just not my personal preference for a favorite sight. I know some people love that, and it's definitely effective. It's not my thing. Now, the overall reason that I'm going to choose what I choose is the operating system itself and the way the firearm handles with the buffer assembly on the recoil, felt recoil. 76251 is a decent cartridge, especially when you're firing it semi-automatic or fully automatic. Most of the FALs were semi-auto. G3A3 was select fire. So I like the FAL better of these two. If I had to pick, would you rather? I'd pick the FAL because of the fact that this thing has a really nice buffer system, and because of the piston. And the whole recoil system starts at the front of the weapon and ends at the rear of the weapon, giving you a lot more area to absorb the recoil and the shock. So what I've noticed about an FAL is that when you fire it, it's not really a snap like a bolt gun. It's more of a push, and it's kind of a jump, and it's really fluid. Kind of like if you ever shot an M1 Garand, it does have muzzle climb and it does recoil. There's felt recoil. There's no sense in trying to be a tough guy saying that, oh, they don't kick. They do, they physically do. It doesn't matter, it doesn't really hurt that much because you got a rubber butt pad. But there's recoil, and it actually makes it a lot easier to manage when you've got a smoother push. You can get back down on target a little bit quicker, especially with that. So with the G3, you've got just a standard buffer tube in here that the recoil actually starts right here and ends right here. The buffer spring comes out from the stock, and it's only about that long, and it's really not super heavy. So with the G3, what I've noticed is that it's got a lot more snap to it, right? It jumps more. It's not, I mean, again, it's a 308, so it's not like super hard on the shoulders and stuff, but it's just the style of recoil, if that makes any sense, is a little bit different on the G3, and it's a little bit more snappy. Excellent rifle still, just not my, given the choice of these two, not my first choice. It would be my second choice. Now, I would take both of these rifles over an AR-15 any day. Any day of the week, I would take this. They're super reliable. They're still in service. So is the AR-15, but I just like these better. I like the caliber better, the platform, the direct blowback versus the direct gas impingement on the AR-15 is an improvement too. So I definitely take the G3 over an AR-15. And then the FAL, I think, is as close to perfection as you're going to get on a semi-automatic battle rifle. Okay, the 20-round box magazine standard on both of these, but you can get extended mags. Easier to find them for the FAL than it is the G3. Although for collectors now, or not collectors but shooters, if you are really concerned about the cost of magazines, go with the G3. These are both going to be about $1,000. These rifles. The G3, you can get magazines for under $10 for a decent aluminum one. You can get them for between $10 and $15 for a good steel one. Those magazines are great. FAL mags are a little bit more expensive. The rifles, like I said, are about the same cost. They're about the same weight. They're fairly heavy. This one just has a little bit more snappy recoil, like I said. I'm not going to recap everything, which is why I would take the FAL. I don't know why. It's just more comfortable for me. And yeah, again, nothing wrong with the G3, but any day of the week, I'm going to take the FAL. So thanks for watching, everybody. I've gotten asked this question quite a bit, and it's been asked in the comments and in real life too. People are like, hey, what would you rather have, an FAL or a G3? And so I thought about it. I knew the answer to it. I just had to figure out how I got there, and that's how I got there. So let me know what you think. Again, this is just my personal preference. This is not saying that any of these guns are worse or whatever. This is just, hey, whatever gun works for you the best is the one you should have. I personally like the FAL over the G3, but I also own a G3 because they're fun as shit to shoot, and they're super reliable, and yeah, magazines are cheap, and it's a sweet piece of history. So thanks for watching, everybody. Consider supporting the channel. There's several ways to do that in the description. Any way you want to contribute, it's just fine with me. Make sure you like the video, and if you haven't already, subscribe, yeah, all that happy stuff. And yeah, make sure you check me out on BitChute if you haven't already. I'll post a link to that in the description. The description's getting pretty long, but anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. Happy Friday. We'll see you on the next video.